Start Over Strong, Life After a DUI, a podcast for people, not offenders. Brought to you by Smart Start, the nation's most trusted, judgment-free ignition interlock provider. Hello and welcome to today's episode. We are so excited to chat today with a very special guest speaker, someone that we have wanted to join us for a very important conversation that our listeners have been eagerly anticipating. We've had this individual on our wish list, so to speak, since we incepted the podcast. I am completely honored to bring on our guest and to introduce her. She is a powerful voice and a major visionary in terms of road safety and saving lives. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Stacey Stewart, CEO of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, also known as MADD. Stacey, we are so excited to have you. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be with both of you all. And
so we have partnered with MADD quite a bit recently. We've got some exciting things coming to market soon. And one of the things I've really enjoyed about my experience with MADD so far is the vision of what seems like these countless leaders within your organization. I know that's a testament to you as a leader. So from a selfish perspective, as someone who also leads a team, I'm curious from you, how do you trickle down the vision that you have and specifically the empathy that you have and that approach that you're bringing to market to the leaders that you have at MADD?
No, that's a really great question. And I think, I've now been at MADD for over 2.5 years, and it's been quite a journey. When I was hired in MADD, it was really the board was very clear with me that they wanted to really take the organization in a different direction and continue to grow the mission, continue to grow the impact, and that we needed to make some really bold decisions to make that happen. And so I took that direction as really the beginning of a blueprint of the way I would approach the position. Although wanted to make sure I came into the organization respecting the great work that had already been done. I mean, MADD has been a phenomenal organization and with a great history. We're celebrating our 45th year this year, and there's so much to celebrate in terms of MADD's history. So many things that have been accomplished over many, many years. And yet we're still in a place where we had not ended impaired driving. And so in order to make progress on an issue, it really requires, all organizations to continue to push ourselves to look deeply at some of the underlying issues and try to confront them and try to address them. And that's what we've certainly been doing at MADD. And it's been an honor to sort of lead. The team is an amazing team. The folks that have been here have great historical knowledge, have contributed over many, many years. And then we brought in new members as well. I mean, with a new CEO, one of the big things that has to be true is that a CEO has to have a team that they can work with. And so that was one of the things that I needed to do, was to really build out the executive leadership team. And we've done that. We've also brought in some other talented individuals who bring other skill sets and competencies, but still holding on to the good and solid parts of the organization that are so strong and so vital to our mission. So it's been quite a journey, and then we have more to go. We haven't quite finished it yet. So we have many more years and to still work on getting to the place where we have no more victims.
Been perceived as an organization that's demonized offenders or that has, maybe not approached with empathy, but is also strategically going to market to prevent impaired driving. What's the approach today, and how does your bold vision align with sort of that maybe transition that your company is making?
Oh, it's such a great question because MADD is an organization that serves victims of impaired driving. We have actually served hundreds and hundreds of thousands of victims over the period of time of our history, victims and survivors of impaired driving crashes. And it takes a very unique approach with very skilled individuals who know how to deal with all of the issues that victims and survivors have to address in their lives. We're dealing with people who've lost loved ones We were founded by a mother who lost her 13-year-old daughter by a drunk driver who was a repeat offender and was out on yet another, having just, you know, a few days earlier had just been having just been released from jail because of a DUI offense. And so at the core, we are really about making sure that we are serving the needs of victims. And that's a huge part of who we are. At the same time, we try to get at the core of the issue to prevent these crashes from happening, which is how do we engage the offenders in ways that will stop them from reoffending. Ideally, we want to keep people from offending the very first time. Certainly, we want to make sure that we don't have repeat offenders. And so we have certain programs that also speak to those offenders and try to meet them where they are. And then recently, we have really looked at some of the underlying statistics around impaired driving. And what we know is that so many impaired drivers are dealing with a range of issues, from substance use, you mentioned alcoholism, substance use disorder. People are dealing with issues around depression, anxiety. That's a lot of people in this country. Not everyone that's dealing with those issues around mental wellness will end up being, um, an offender and causing an impaired driving crash or causing there to be a victim or a survivor of an impaired driving crash. But we do know that for every DUI arrest, that driver has been driving impaired at least 80 times before they actually get arrested. We know that a significant number of people have said that they are experiencing alcoholism if they are arrested for a DUI. And so this is a very real part of what is causing impaired driving crashes to happen in the first place. And recently, MADD has really taken, I think, a very bold position to start addressing the challenges around mental wellness, the challenges around mental health, substance use disorder as a key part of what we have to start beginning to acknowledge if we want to actually see impaired driving crashes. And the last thing I'll just say is that a lot of our work is around implementing anti-drunk driving technology, which if you are impaired and behind the wheel would actually mean that your car doesn't operate if you're above the legal limit. That is legislation that has already been passed. We're just trying to get that law implemented. And that will mean that we are not completely depending on behavior change to actually solve the issue, that we can actually use technology in a smart and safe way to actually end this. Of course, ignition interlock devices have always been a part of the solution here, and they've been incredibly effective, helping to reduce repeat offenses by 67%. So technology is a key part of this issue as well. We need to make sure technology is there to help us end drunk and impaired driving. But we also need to make sure that those offenders really get the support they need so that they don't make the decision to use drugs or to drink and then get behind the wheel and put themselves or someone else's life at risk.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate the answer and the honesty. And I love the answer to being very focused around technology. We are a technology company, very much so. I talk about our tech stack all of the time. It works. Because, Stacey, if I'm a mama, which I am, and I'm out there with my two kiddos in the car, and I have found myself in this situation, and I'm in the middle of an ignition interlock stipulation, I want my vehicle to start. I want to know that my results are being sent to my monitoring authority. These are issues, believe it or not, that exist in the IID car breathalyzer world. So thank you for that. I will say too, we say that the word offender, it's like a dirty word at Smart Start. We don't see the offender, right? We see the person. We try not to look at the infraction. We're trying to prevent the infraction. And if you happen to be here, how can we prevent a subsequent offense, which is amazing. And there's incredible alignment with our mission and your mission to save lives, which is huge. So, Izzy, I know you have questions today. I'll let you take the next one.
Yeah, definitely a few for Stacey. And it's Stacey, very, very nice to meet you. I'll introduce myself. My name is Izzy Varela. I am all things sales and support at Smart Start. Smart Start's a little bit over 30. I'm a kid of the 90s, so I remember MADD being everywhere in school, on TV, literally
Right.
everywhere. So I did want to
Right.
ask a little bit, you touched about it. Can you tell me a little bit more about the origin story? Tell me a little bit about how MADD got started, and then, what continues to be the driving force to keep it going forward and being something that is so um, topical when it comes to, to drunk driving.
Yeah, well, the story is really compelling. We were started in 1980 by a mom, Candy Lightner, whose daughter Carrie was a 13-year-old girl who was killed by a drunk driver. She was a 13-year-old softball star. She was a student athlete, which is important to know if you know that we've started MADD Sports. We could almost say it was in honor of Carrie, who was a student athlete herself. But she was killed by a driver who had received his fourth DUI, had just been released a couple days before he was out driving again. Um, Carrie was a tireless advocate. She went around to communities and raised the flag around that drunk driving is a forgettable crime, that it should never happen to anybody, should not have happened to her daughter, shouldn't happen to then the many tens of thousands of people that were being killed in drunk driving crashes. And it started a movement, started by a mom who was in pain and who was trying to make sure that no one else would have to experience the pain that she was experiencing. And so MADD began as a grassroots movement, mainly of other moms, but not just moms, it was anyone and everyone. And we know that impaired driving doesn't discriminate. Anyone from around the country, anybody from any walk of life, anybody from any community in any part of the country can be impacted. In fact, we know 2 out of 3 Americans will be impacted one way or another from impaired driving. Either they will be a victim or survivor, they'll know someone in their family, but it touches a significant part of all of our lives, and it's something that again can be totally prevented. And so because of the work that Carrie did, we were able to see a dramatic decline in impaired driving deaths over a long period of time and over this 45-year period. When COVID hit, though, from 2019 to 2022, we saw a 33% increase in fatalities.
Wow.
And again, that goes back to what we just talked about, that there's a strong correlation now between the fact that some of the mental health decline that we experienced, all of us did during COVID, from lockdown and all the pressures of the pandemic, there was a lot more drinking and consuming going on. People then chose to get behind the wheel, although they were in lockdown, there was less driving going on, but there was a 33% increase in fatalities and obviously a huge increase in injuries. So we know, if there's nothing else, that experience tells us that unless and until we deal with the intersection between mental wellness and impaired driving, we actually won't fundamentally get to the root causes of the issue. And that's one things that we're trying to address now at MADD, as we just spoke about.
Yeah, it makes me very emotional. We talk a lot about, and I'm very proud of our leadership team. Our executive leadership team is very honest and forthright about their position with impaired driving. And, as a mom who is bringing stigma free to market, and representing a voice for those that are looking to change and who have made a mistake or sometimes multiple mistakes. We like to avoid, Izzy and I, saying that this is a second chance, because for some people it's not a second chance. This is third, fourth, fifth plus in some circumstances. And I'm proud of our executive leadership team and our visionary leaders, because two things can be true at the same time. We can understand that someone may make a mistake and this, end up in this horrible situation, and that we also sympathize and empathize with those who have lost a loved one. Both things can be true at the same time.
That's
so,
right. Yeah,
which is,
I think that's right.
Yeah, you can feel the energy in the room right now and the power. It's palpable between your vision and our vision to prevent this from happening. And prevention is the key word there. So,
yeah, prevention is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I just say too, our victims and survivors, understandably, carry a lot of pain every day. their lives are never the same. When someone makes a decision to get behind the wheel after they have been consuming alcohol or drugs, and we know that polyuse, cannabis, and other drugs are also a key issue here. It's not just alcohol. When someone makes that decision, they are potentially putting other people's lives at risk. And we deal with victims and survivors whose lives have been altered, whose families' lives have potentially been altered, and they potentially lost individuals that they love. And that is something that never changes. I mean, all of us will go through our lives experiencing that pain if we're a victim and survivor, and there's nothing that relieves that pain. At the same time, the folks that are experiencing issues that may have caused an impaired driving crash, if they are experiencing alcoholism or addiction, they're dealing with issues that are, it's really a disease. And it's an obsessive compulsive disease that, while it seems like people are making decisions to get behind the wheel, technically they're not capable of making good judgments and good sound decisions. If they were, they would never do what they've done, right? Get behind the wheel after they're completely incapable of safely operating a vehicle. Having said that, when people do make those decisions, they have to own the consequences of their decisions. While they're owning the consequences of those decisions, maybe there's an option for them to also get the help they need so that they never commit those same or make those same bad decisions going forward, so that they don't continue to put other people's lives at risk or their own lives at risk. And so it is a little complicated. It requires us at MADD to look at the entire issue to make sure that we're dealing with all of the different factors that are impacting impaired driving, and try to make sure that we're putting in place all the things that can actually prevent things as we move forward.
Great. I love everything you said. And I think for me, one thing I kind of pull out is nuance, and then also evolution of the mission. And you've touched on it from a technology perspective. I think that's any kind of big world problem that we're dealing right now is going to have some form of technology as a solution. But talking a little bit more about the future and your role at MADD, you are the captain of a big ship. There is a lot of stressors. What's the biggest challenge that you're facing currently, and how are you tackling the future of MADD?
Yeah. I'm really so proud of our team and our board at MADD. Everyone works really well together. Everyone comes to work every day trying to do the best job they can for our mission. And that's all really important. I think the biggest issue is around change management. Change is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Most people in their lives don't like to change. Most of us don't want to have to do anything differently. We don't want to have to go out of our way to change how we're doing things. It's just a human natural thing.
Yes, ma'am.
However, if you stay the same, and the world changes, then you're probably falling back, right? Because you just can't stay static in one place while the world changes and think that things are just going to remain successful and move along. It requires everyone has to change with the times. We have to evolve. Even the way we're talking about technology wasn't really something that we talked about 40 years ago. We're talking about it now, right? It is a real opportunity for us to end impaired driving using good technology that can help save lives. That is evolution. That and in every part of MADD, there is a bit of evolution that is required, even as we're talking about the issues around impaired driving. So I think change management is really one of the biggest opportunities, but also one of the biggest challenges, and dealing with the human element of that it requires helping a team see the vision, really get on board with it, be a part of it, contribute to it. It requires me to be a good listener as we're creating change, not just imposing my will, but sort of, laying out it's an interesting balance, laying out a vision of what's possible, but then allowing people to be a part of helping to shape that future as well. It is really quite a form of art, I would say, in some respects, but it's it makes the job challenging and a lot of fun every single day.
Yeah, that's incredible. You're such a bold leader, but I can feel like the passion, and you have a soft heart at the same time. So I think it would be easy to follow you through change. I can't
Hope so.
speak for everybody on your team. But one thing you
Some of
mentioned,
them may not say that though. It depends on the day. I'll say that.
well, I will say one thing you touched on as well. You talked about 67% of, prevention, meaning an IID can prevent 67% of starts. And it's a statistic that we live, breathe, think about, talk about all day long at Smart Start. And just in terms of drunk driving accountability, it's something that we're always thinking about. You mentioned poly blows. Izzy and I just had a recent conversation with expert Steve Luce on cannabis. We had the Delta 9 and the THC conversation. We tried to educate our viewers on the 0.05% and poly blows. And what we are interested in terms of the future and change is recent generations that are coming of age are quote unquote drinking less. However, they're just using substances. So we have seen marijuana usage as the legalization goes up. We've seen those younger generations numbers skyrocket in terms of poly use. And so I see that as a pretty big significant partnership with MADD moving forward with Smart Start. I'm just curious, from someone who is a creative mind myself, talk to me about any future events or opportunities that our listeners can cue into or listen to in terms of MADD, not just necessarily MADD and Smart Start and how we're partnering together, but what are y'all doing right now that we can listen into and tune into, at least over the next 6 months, while we watch you hopefully increase the statistic of bringing impaired driving down?
Well, one of the things that we want to make sure everyone who cares about our mission and would love to work with us closely, there are tons of things that you can get involved in. Just go to MADD.org. We have Walk Like MADD events that happen over the course of the year. There's a calendar of them in your community. We'd ask everyone to come out and participate in that.
Wow.
But we also are about to celebrate our 45th anniversary in September 9th and 10th in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Also on our website, madd.org. You can get information. Love for you to register to be a part of it. We're going to be having a couple days of some very interesting activities. One is we're going to be showing off some tech. We'll have Smart Start there.
Awesome.
Showing off some technology that is really capable of addressing the issue of impaired driving, because we believe that technology is really the answer of how we'll get to a solution here.
Sure.
We also will be having a series of roundtable discussions around the future of impaired driving, some of what you just spoke about, the trends that we're seeing around poly use, a decline in alcohol use among young people, but that being replaced by other substances, the issue around mental health and mental wellness we talked about. So we're going to have a very rich dialogue around some of these issues to help inform our stakeholders and our partners and friends around how we see the future. And then we're going to spend a day on the Hill, going to talk to members of Congress and hopefully members of the administration about the sense of urgency we all need to have in impaired driving, implementing the HALT Act, making sure that we do everything we can to address this 100% preventable crime. And so it's going to be a great opportunity to be in Washington the 9th and the 10th. We want to invite everyone to be a part of it. And we thank Smart Start for some great support that you all have given. Smart Start has given us, and being a part of that event, I think it's going to be very special. So those are just some of the things coming up. We want to invite everybody to be a part of.
Well, thank you. That's great. You want to take the space to say to us today. I think that would be good for me to know. And then Izzy, if you have any other questions.
No, I think that'd be amazing to hear from Stacey.
Yes.
No, I think I wanted to make sure that everyone knew about the 45th anniversary. I think the one thing I would say is that, a lot of people think that impaired driving is a something of the past. People say to me all the time, "Oh, Matt, are you guys still around?" Or they say, "Gee, I didn't think people still did drink and would drive." we have Uber, we have Lyft, we have rideshare. Why do people choose to do that? And I think a lot of people don't understand that, it's because of the nature of the people who are driving impaired, that many of them are driving impaired because they're not capable of making good, sound decisions. They may be challenged with substance use disorder, alcoholism, and that condition is causing them to make some very bad decisions and put themselves at risk and other people's lives at risk. And that's a huge issue. At the same time, we have something now that we can do about it. We can put in place technology, we can educate, we can inform, we can even advocate for there to be a range of solutions to help prevent impaired driving from happening. And I think that's a big part of the evolution of MADD is how do we not just continue to serve the victims and survivors, but really go to the heart of how to prevent the issue, how to prevent someone who is already impaired from getting behind the wheel. How do we make sure that we can intervene earlier so that doesn't happen? And I think that's a big part of what we're focusing on here in MADD.
Yes, that's great. I will say too, like it is my mission. It is Morgan Ryan's mission to make our breath check device a regular thing. Our breath check device is this really cool, tiny little breath check. It is not this chintzy device that you get online. It works and it functions like it's supposed to. There's a fuel cell inside of it, and you can blow into this device and very quickly know what your alcohol level is. I have had many instances where I've had moms tell me, I went to get wine with my friends for the first time in forever for lunch. And, there's that moment where you're like, are you good? No, I'm good. I don't know if I'm good. Are you good to drive? I don't know. Are you good? And so, you find yourself in that situation where nobody knows. Well, I've only had one or I've had two. And that's an instance where all of us need to have a breath check. If we have kiddos that are going to prom, we need to make the assumption that there's going to be temptation there. If we have individuals who aren't sick or struggling with a disease of alcoholism, just ordinary prevention in general, making that a regular part of how we operate in society. And Stacey, I was telling Izzy this the other day. I recently went to Las Vegas for a conference, and I was only maybe 15 minutes outside of the city. This was an event where I had to take a taxi to go, and I was dropped off at the hotel for this conference, and then the taxi left. I had taken it from the airport. I could not get an Uber or a Lyft. I had to call like 1-800-TAXI to get even a taxi from just 15 minutes outside of the city. So for those of us that live in these metroplexes like Dallas and Fort Worth, we do have access to Uber and Lyft, but there are many areas in this nation where it's like it's a black hole. They don't have rideshare. So prevention up front, I think, happens at many levels for me.
That's exactly right.
Yes, ma'am.
That's exactly right. And because maybe 30 to 40% of all impaired driving crashes do happen in rural areas. They're not in places that have rideshare. Rideshare is not, the silver bullet solution to everything. Unfortunately, it has been incredibly helpful, but it may not be available. And it also may be cost prohibitive for some people too. So we just have to acknowledge that while it is one of the most incredible, things that's really come about that really gives people an option to avoid drinking and driving or using and driving, it is not a foolproof 100% solution that's going to end impaired driving for good. And that's why we have to continue to do the work that we're doing at MADD and working with our partners to make sure that we can put in place other things that are going to be really critical to address the issue.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Amazing. Well, we usually ask a question of myself from the Reddit forum, but since we have you, we really want to go ahead and take advantage of the fact that you're here. So I'm going to use one of the live questions that's come through, and it's a big question, but maybe you can hit on some of the things that are important to you. So the question is, what's something you wish you would have known before you started this journey?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, I guess, one of the things that I So I don't know how much people know about my journey in my career, and I don't want to bore everyone to tears about that. But this is the fourth time that I've been the CEO or president of a major national and/or global organization. I started my career really on Wall Street. I went to business school. Fast forward, I worked at Fannie Mae in the company for a little while. Then I transferred over to be the president and CEO of the foundation, the Fannie Mae Foundation. I then became U.S. president of United Way. I then became president and CEO of March of Dimes, and then I became CEO of MADD. I've worked in a lot of areas of society, addressing issues of education or health or maternal health or financial stability, a whole range of issues, affordable housing, homelessness. I've seen a lot of what are some of the solutions to hard social challenges. And then coming to MADD was really an experience for me, even though because I wasn't a traffic safety professional, I wasn't someone that really was steeped in the issues of impaired driving. However, I could sympathize and had a lot of empathy for victims and survivors. My own sister had been a victim. She became a quadriplegic in a drowsy driving crash.
Oh.
Also, ironically, in 1980, the same year that MADD was born. And she lived 45 years in a wheelchair, and she managed to become a lawyer. She became a judge. She was extremely accomplished, and she passed away a couple of years ago. And I'm saying that all to say that becoming the CEO of MADD, it might have been nice to know a little bit more about some of the elements around impaired driving, some of the causes, some of the issues that really we're dealing with right now that we're talking about. A lot of folks at MADD have spent years, maybe their entire career working in this space. And I've worked in a lot of different areas. Having said that, though, I've had a lot of experience at tackling tough social challenges and what is required to get at the core of how do you get to an issue that on the face of it sounds really easy. Let's end impaired driving. But beneath it is actually pretty complicated because there are a variety of factors that you have to take into account. And that level of thinking through strategically how to solve an issue, which may take years to do, but is actually possible to do, is something that I have a great deal of experience doing. And so while it's always nice to feel like you come in a job knowing everything that you need to know, it's really never like that. There's always something you actually have no idea about. And part of what makes a job really exciting is the learning part of it. There's a phrase that you're never too old to learn. I think that's absolutely true. What makes this job really exciting for me is being able to dive into a whole new set of issues, learn a new set of players, and try to navigate and figure out how we at MADD can make progress in the midst of all that. And lean a lot on other people to help and educate and inform me. So it's been a lot of listening and learning from a lot of people. Again, not being too old to learn. I'm not that old, but I'm saying you're never too old to learn, whatever age you're at. So I think it would have been nice to have learned a little bit more about the work, but frankly, not knowing a lot about it has given me an opportunity to just feel energized every day to learn more and to do more and hopefully succeed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Servant leadership is clearly been your path, and we're deeply sorry for your sister's experience and for your experience. And we honor her memory today. And we're just so grateful to have you here. Time is our biggest gift. It's our biggest blessing. And you are very clearly using your time with intentionality to solve this problem. So thank you for everything you do, Stacey. We are so grateful to have you. It was great to have you today.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining our episode today, a powerful conversation with the CEO of MADD, Stacey Stewart. If you find yourself in a situation where you do need an ignition interlock device, or you have a loved one that does, please use code STIGMA-FREE and get your first 2 payments free.
Or always feel free to call 844-766-0156 for some personal advice on your DUI journey.
Thank you for joining our episode today. I'm Morgan Ryan.
And I'm Izzy Varela.
Until next time,
Stay safe, drive smart.
Hit the rock, buddy. That was a good episode.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh,
It's
no.
gonna be one of the best ones.